You had guys working with guys. You didn't have to let go of me, leave me alone, this, that, and the other. But it's interesting because on the first day of school, they asked me what was my opinion. The students did, and I said I'm fine with it because I don't have to worry about girls touching girls and guys touching girls. I mean, girls touching guys and guys touching girls. I said, now, am I gonna have guys touching guys in here? No, Mr. Ford, we're not gonna do that. No, no, no. I said, I just want to make sure because y'all be play fighting in the hallway and everything. But what I've noticed is they're more concentrated. They don't have to show out. Like if you were in my classroom and I liked you, I don't have to show out and everything. I'm not gonna show out for Mark with all due respect, but
So is that in the traditional program they're doing that, or traditional and optional at Central?
Mostly for the core classes, like your ones that are based on core content. Yes, like your English and your science and your math. Like for instance, I teach Algebra 1, so I know that they'll be taking the Algebra 1 end of course test. So to make sure that we are meeting the requirements that go up every single year, as far as being advanced and proficient are concerned, we're trying this out again. And like I said, I'm a full proponent of it because you got more learning involved. You don't have to worry about the little tete-a-tetes per se.
Okay. It takes away that component.
It does.
So can you?
You digress.
I'm sorry.
Can you? I know you mentioned that one of the major educational problems in Memphis is the achievement gap.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about, because you have to recuse yourself
Yes.
in terms of educational issues?
Well, just the budgetary.
Right. Okay, so outside of the budget,
Mm-hmm.
what role can you play in addressing that major concern you have as a city council member?
Okay, let me tell you two things that I was able to do legally that the council has done. We've been able to find grants that dealt with those particular issues that you introduced. We also have made sure that we funded the Summer Youth Employment Program.
The one where they didn't get paid, no?
No, this was prior to Mayor A.C. Warden transformed it to where
This summer?
As a matter of fact, this is the second year doing the Youth Ambassadors Program,
Okay.
to where we're not just looking at 2,500, 3,000 students working in the summer. We're looking more at 600 students working year-round because we just don't work in the in the fall and the spring. I even work in the summer. Well, my summer school was city council. But what we've done is we've looked at grants that we've required as well as other initiatives to where we can find ways that students can achieve not just in the classroom but outside. One thing that I've noticed is that the outside experience is so important to the overall learning experience. It is very important. I remember when I was in school where we went on field trips and we did this, that, and the other. I missed a little bit of that. And sometimes with our students that we all in this room care about so much, if this is their neighborhood, for example, this sheet of paper, but this table represented the entire city, you have so many of our children and students to where they don't know anything that goes out here. If it's not within this particular finite subset, it doesn't exist.
It's common knowledge among educators. There are teenagers in Memphis who've never seen the Mississippi River.
Right.
True.
Which to me is incredibly sad.
Yeah.
But yes, right.
And that was my I was 7, so that was my second grade trip.
Yeah, well, does it seem like you field, well, I don't want to get off Mark because it's more about the city, but it seems like me field trips sometimes are difficult because of the bureaucracy involved with it. And I know there's all kind of legal issues, but.
Right.
It seems like me it needs to be focused more on part of the schools. It's like to be an integral part of education, outside experience.
If that's the common goal, I agree, yes.
So that's 600 students that are involved in that right now?
Correct.
How many are eligible?
Everyone who fits the particular criteria, such as the GPA and the age range, he or she can always apply. It's an online process. One thing that Ms. Lewis did, I know you mentioned not getting paid, but however, one thing that she did do is she made sure that she incorporated the online process. There were a lot of people that wanted to do it by hand, and by hand it costs more, and then you want to make sure that they know when you go out into the real world and you apply, paper is probably going to be very minimal. So the The process is open to everybody, but it's a lottery process because you can't fulfill everybody's needs.
So there's not enough money to allow,
That same 2,000.
I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say to you is were there a lot more kids that wanted to participate but couldn't because there wasn't enough money there for it?
Yes, for both prior to Mayor Warden's tenure and during his tenure. There's always a small amount of money.
Would you be in favor of putting more money towards programs like that?
I have no problem with that at all.
So why does that not happen within our city council as it is right now? I mean, what are the hurdles?
I think when you have all the divisions of the city and you take in consideration that and the particular division with the grants and services where that money is allocated, the hard decisions that we make at the end, we still have to make sure our trash is collected, we got to make sure our water is clean, we got to make sure our air is breathable, we have to make sure that our fires are put out. It's an onerous task when you have a budget which is probably, if y'all take all of these together, I should have brought my budget book so you all can see it. When you have a limited amount of money and you want to, and your desire is to fund everything in its full capacity. However, when you're limited, just like if you have a paycheck and you can't take care of everything at one time, you look at priorities, and I think education is a great priority, and like I said before, if you go back and look at the things that are not MCS budget based, everything I voted for has been pro-education. I'm all in favor in finding other revenue sources. The reason why I was here on time is because I was actually in a meeting with well, I don't want to mention his name, but I was with a particular gentleman, and we were discussing other ways that we could fund areas that were related to education, such as your park services and your tourism. And the only reason I'm tying that to education is because some of the things that we look at, like out here, sometimes we don't have the funding for that as well. So if you look at other budgets, such as Nashville, for example, Nashville just passed a $1.5 billion budget. Our budget was $680 million. Their population is very similar to ours. So if they got 2.5 times as much money, what are we not doing to generate more money to take care of our youth and other services that Nashville was doing? I lived in Nashville for 11 years. All I saw them do is construct, and they made avenues available for those young and not so young. And I'm like, you know what? There needs to be a study on what they're doing and compare it to what we're not doing so that we can possibly look at these avenues. I mean, if it's grant-based, let's go after those grants, whether it's state or federal.
So is anybody in our city council, and I guess I'm going to ask who's taking the lead on that? I mean, who's fighting for our youth right now on our city council? Is it just you? Are you the solo person?
I can only speak for myself, but as far as finding avenues, I fight on the council at City Hall and at 306 South Bellevue Boulevard every single day. One thing that I did notice when I came back to the city, and I did put this in the information that I gave you all, as a matter of fact, I put it in number 2. One thing that I did 3 years ago, and it was my experiences at Hillwood High School when I was a teacher there. Hillwood High School it was very diverse. It was sort of like how Central was in the 90s, where there was really no majority demographic. But I noticed the needs that the students had there. Now, although Hillwood High School was adjacent to a more affluent neighborhood, most of those students were coming from the lower socioeconomic group in the West Nashville area. When I came to Memphis, it was very similar, only there was a lower socioeconomic group. One thing that I've done is I wholeheartedly agree that you should fulfill the minds of students in any type of capacity you could. So what I started 3 years ago when I finally got my 501c3 status last month, as a matter of fact, I got it on July the 7th. It's called the 4 Gateway Tutoring Fund. I incentivize